Hey everybody, this is Peter Palmiotti, and this is Making Comics Tonight, episode, what is it, 277, something like that? So many shows, so many episodes. With me today is Brian, otherwise known as Dojo Kun Comics, talking
Thanks
about
for having me, Peter. It's great to be here.
My pleasure, man, my pleasure. And you're promoting your book, Projectile, Reptile. And,
right.
Yes. Yeah, you were on my channel over the summer, I believe. And
a few months ago.
Yeah, we were talking about this book, and lots been going on for sure. So let me say hello to Unhinged, otherwise
Jason.
Welcome.
Hail.
Yeah, so you've been hitting the pavework, promoting
That's
your book
right.
and your crowdfunder and getting the word out. And
yeah, so when I was on your show a few months ago, it was still in its pre-launch sign-up phase. So there wasn't as much to show to your audience. But now I'm in the last 6 days of my second 30. So you're right. A lot of time has passed. I've got 69 backers so far, and we're at 74%. So it's getting down to the wire. I still think it's possible to get this funded. I just need to get this out in front of the right people. And hopefully my appearance on some of these shows like yours, we've got over like 1,500 followers. I'm hoping that a couple eyes get on there and say, hey, I'll give this one a try.
Yeah, I hope so. So let's get into, what the book is and about, and you can show them that campaign page as we go.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'm going to start out with the trailer, though, because it talks a lot about it.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Cool.
Infamous gunslinger Desmond Gibbons, better known across the Wild West as the Cactus Kid, comes to the sleepy town of Clarkson. Trouble finds him in the unlikeliest of sources, the sheriff. After their conflict, the Cactus Kid finds himself inexplicably wearing the badge of a lawman. Later, while on the trail of a serial killer, he and his deputy run afoul of a powerful druid, and the events that lead to the Cactus Kid's transformation into the hulking, four-armed projectile reptile are even more than the druid bargained for. From the Wild West to current-day Los Angeles, where he meets superheroes Black Eagle and Red Hawk, and forms an uneasy alliance with the stunning but deadly Kitty Hawk. Join the Projectile Reptile on a journey of gunslinging druidic magic, superheroes, and artifacts. Projectile Reptile from Dojo Kun Comics, only on Indiegogo. Are you ready for the truly Wild West?
I've heard it a million times. I love that one. The voiceover work by John, the music in the background. It's a fun trailer, and I get to see it a million times.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Well done.
So what I'll do is I'll go down the campaign page, like you said, and we'll talk about the art and the covers and et cetera, and then we'll get over to the tiers. Cover A right here is an homage to an Iron Man annual where it's split down the middle and there's two scenes in the back. And this one's by Caius. He's a Brazilian artist, and he is the interior artist for the whole book, too. We'll see some of his art a little bit further down. Pardon?
We have Tartan in the chat. Ninja art.
Oh, Tartan Ninja art?
Yeah.
So all of these pieces of art you see here on the campaign page, he did the colors.
Nice.
Yes. So he is right here on the cover, Leithwood. Chris Leithwood is his name.
Okay, cool.
So cover B is by Renzo Rodriguez, and Bancroft coined the phrase, this is the ass grab cover. He does a great job with the honeys, and he had done one that was similar to this. It was just a woman in front of a saloon, and I said, hey, could you put my character in front of the saloon and a couple ladies? He's like, I'm down with that. So I think he did a great job on this cover.
Yeah.
And then I got a great get here for cover C. It's a limited edition hardcover, and it's by Shelby Robertson. And honestly, It's another homage cover. This one is to Punisher #2, way back in the 80s by Mike Zeck.
Very nice. Yep.
This limited edition is going to be, it's a hardcover. This is the first hardcover that Shelby's work will even ever appear on. So I'm excited about that. That's a good get. And it's limited edition in that the tier itself, and then any that get the bundle tier, that's the number that will be printed. No more than that. So here's a look at the interior art by Cayuse. Here's the Cactus Kid coming into town, Clarkson. You saw some of this art already on the trailer, but then as I get down here, you see that it's the reveal of the character, the projectile reptile. And as you can see, just by his expression, this isn't quite what the druid intended to happen. So this whole thing here is inadvertently turned into the projectile reptile, and he's got to deal with that. I've added a new piece of art to the campaign page, and that's this one featuring Black Eagle, Red Hawk, and then Kitty Hawk. So it's her first appearance.
Nice.
If you're a backer of a physical tier and you're among the first 100 to do so, you get this fridge magnet by 6 a.m. Comics. Now, this fridge magnet it's pretty substantial. It's about the size of your hand. It's a big magnet. I've got 100 of these. Got them upstairs. So, yep, they're ready to go. For the add-ons, there's a full-color comic-sized print by Peter Orchard Studios. He was the winner of our Projectile Reptile fan art contest. So he's going to get a cash prize and some trading cards for his efforts once the campaign is fulfilling. You can add on either cover A or B. C is not available as an add-on. The hardcover isn't, but either one of these is, depending on what kind of bundle you put together. There is a digital tier for $12, but if you add the digital onto a physical tier, you get it for only $8. There are some chibi stickers available. Some people really like these, or their kids like them. So I've got an artist I found on Fiverr who does a great job with these. The second printing of Siamese. Now, that was my first campaign. It funded in 2021 in just 3 days and then fulfilled on time in September of 2021. So excited about that. This is the second printing, a new cover by Cy Lim, and Cy is the co-creator of the characters. So I'm proud to have a cover by Cy. Now this tier, when we get to it, you'll see that it's $35, but that's because this is a 128-page book. So this one's significant. It's a big one.
All right.
There is a Projectile Reptile Mint Tin game. So this is a card game. I designed the game mechanics, and Rusty Gilligan designed the cards. Basically, there are stats for each of these characters on the cards. So when you draw your character, you add up the stats and then roll 2 dice and then see if your score, exceeds your opponent's score, and then you win that round. So it's a simple little game to play with kids. It's easy to understand and move through the game pretty quickly. But I love the idea of coming up with something new that I hadn't seen before on previous campaigns.
Right. Yeah, that's cool.
Another possible add-on is the foil 8-page ash can of this character, Bog. He's an alien plant menace. And I can tell you that what happens with Bog is an alien group comes to his planet to colonize. He makes it abundantly clear that they're not welcome. But then word of their demise gets back to their home planet, and a much larger force comes back to his planet. And what happens next changes his life and the life of everything on his planet. Now, for stretch goals, I have some selected, and we can take a look at them, but I have no dollar amounts attached to them yet. And that's because a lot of times what I see happen is people put stretch goals on their campaigns, and if they do very well, they blow through the stretch goals really, really fast. And honestly, that's not the intent of a stretch goal. It's to incent people to back the book. So first, I want to get to my goal, and then I'll start putting the stretch goal dollar amounts on here as each one is reached. And then, if in fact it's possible to get to the next one, we'll bring the next one up. So there's a metal trading card by Phoenix Animation. The second stretch goal is an additional 8 pages added to Projectile Reptile. It's a chapter called Primordial Tales featuring Dr. Primordial. And just in case people, sometimes when they say they're going to have additional pages, people are like, oh, that means it's going to take you that much longer to get the book done. But in this case, these 8 pages are already done.
Sweet.
So if this happens and these 8 pages get to be added to it, then, they're ready to be, put in there in the page files. If it doesn't happen, then maybe that'll be an additional ash can down the road, but we'll see what happens. Stretch goal 3 is an acrylic standee. So in addition to the character itself standing on the rectangular base, there will also be a rectangular like backdrop that you can change the picture in and out. You can put him in the Old West and modern day Los Angeles, whichever you'd like.
Nice.
Fourth stretch goal is the Keshi figure by Eric Hutfels. And he does such a great job with this. He said he had fun adding the extra arms on this one. And then lastly, a challenge coin. Now, I was able to fulfill a challenge coin as part of the stretch goal on Siamese. This is obviously the Siamese challenge coins just to provide an example of what they could look like. So the back will have the Dojo-kun Comics logo, just like it shows here. And then the front, of course, will have Projectile Reptile instead of Siamese. But the coin itself it's substantial. It's heavy. It's really cool to own. Mm-hmm. And then, I've mentioned, I'm the writer. Cayuse is the artist. Chris Leafwood, the colorist. We've got the hardest working letterer in Comicsgate. That's Eric Weathers. And I also took the advice of a lot of folks in the indie realm, and that is to make sure that I hire an editor. And Steve Ferguson, as the editor, has done a great job in helping me to identify when a character's voice sort of strays. He pointed out, like, for example, the Cactus Kid started out sounding very folksy and Old West, but then a couple pages later, he sounded very eloquent. And Steve said, either one of those is great, but you need to pick one.
Right.
The character's got to have a consistent voice throughout the book. So, things like that he pointed out were a big help. And so his editing really helped polish the book very well. And of course, another way that anybody can help is to retweet if you see it, or grab the link here in the chat if we provide it and send it out there. Because, like I said, we're down to the last 6 days, so we're working hard to try to get this fulfilled so we can get this in the people's hands. The goal is $5,000, and that's really the minimum I need to pay the creative staff. So if we get to 5,000, it'll definitely be made. I'm not in it to make a whole bunch of money. I'm in it because this is my hobby. In fact, I have been publishing since 2014. I've got 12 books that I've published already. And I just recently discovered crowdfunding. So all of those books that I published before were, out of pocket. So this here is just helping me recoup some of that money and get these things made so I can pay my creative staff, because this is just a fun hobby to me. This is my passion. I would be doing this even if I didn't make a dime. But it would be helpful if I did.
Yeah. We got Fanta. Welcome.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. I got the link to the campaign down in the video description box for people to go and click on that at their convenience.
Excellent. Thank you. And for those of you who want to see the other books that I've published over the years, you can have a look at dojokuncomics.com. And those books, they're floppies, and they are available at print to order. So if you, through Indie Planet, so if you click on those and, they're inexpensive and you get them sent to your home, they're printed when you order it. So, there's not a worry about running out of them. So my tiers, the Kitty Hawk tier, has the whole kitten caboodle. It's got all 3 covers, A, B, and C. So this tier does include the hardcover. It's got the catch-up tier where you've got the Siamese trade paperback, a digital copy of the book, the ash can featuring Bog, the chibi stickers, and the mint tin game. So it is definitely the biggest bang for your buck at the Kitty Hawk tier. Now it says 0 claimed, but I can tell you that a number of people have claimed it at a secret discount tier. So if you signed up for the book, ahead of time, you've got that secret discount in your emails, and you can get this at a bit of a discount. So nobody has so far paid for it at full price, but I can tell you that there's more than a handful who have claimed this tier. I did mention there's a digital tier for those who are international and don't want to pay exorbitant shipping costs. The digital tier by itself is $12. Covers A and B are $25 each. This is the catch-up tier. If you want to get that one by itself, you can do that. In fact, I had someone do that at $35. And then lastly, the hardcover, the limited edition, it says 9 out of 125, but in a similar instance, these are also purchased at a secret discount tier. So the $40 hardcover is, I wouldn't say it's a steal, but I will say it's definitely a great value. I did a hardcover for Siamese, and that was very well received. It was slightly smaller than a regular comic book. It's not one of those bande dessinées out of France, so it's a little bit smaller, but a compact size, I think, and it's got like not a leather feel, but it's got a plush feel to the cover, which I thought was great. And it's very tactile for me. So I thought that the hardcover, and I'm going to go with that same company that did the hardcover for Siamese. Now, and that company is Mixam. I have heard wonderful things about Mixam, and I have heard some not so wonderful things about Mixam. My personal experience, though, was when I got the ash can from Siamese. It was called Meanwhile. There was some damage in the first shipment. They immediately took care of that. No problems with customer service. And then all of the other books with the various covers, I had 6 different covers plus the hardcover on that one for Siamese, and all of those came in great shape. So my experience with Mixam is that they do great work, at least here in the States.
Right. Cool.
So what is it you are drawing? Are you drawing something that
it's just sketching. I just find that I really keep my skill up if I just even doodle every day. So it's nothing specific. It's just another drawing.
He almost looks like he could be a Gorgon.
Well, that's sort of fancy hair.
Oh, okay.
more than a head of snakes. But yeah, it just keep my skill up, and I want to be more of an artist than like people know me as an inker, and I will continue inking, but I want to draw a lot more than I have been. So.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I was mentioning Gorgon to try to stick with the reptilian theme. You know what I mean? In addition to the heroes that are already mentioned on the trailer and what I've talked about, there's a few more that will be introduced in Projectile Reptile. There's a bevy of super villains that will be introduced in Projectile Reptile. And because it's part of the superhero connected universe from Dojo Kun Comics, Siamese make a cameo in the book as well. Nice. I have over 150 original characters that I've introduced either in Siamese and Projectile Reptile, or in you'll find it available on my website. I did a compendium, the Dojo Kun Comics annual compendium, which is an homage or a love letter to the old official handbook of the Marvel Universe, where there's a full body pose of the character and then all of their stats down the side, and their history, their origin, their power set, and things like that. I really enjoyed making that kind of a book, like an encyclopedia, and I did that for a vast majority of my characters. Now, since I did that, though, I've made a few more characters, so obviously the second issue of that and that compendium will need to come out and include those as well.
That's crazy. That's a lot.
What did you think about those compendiums when they came out from Marvel? And DC did one called Who's Who in the DC universe.
Who's Who? Yeah. I liked those back in the day, where if it was heroes I didn't know, weren't familiar with, at least to give me, like, this is their powers, this is, where you can find them and all that sort of stuff, and really informative. I mean, that was obviously before the internet and before you can look it up pretty fast. So yeah, it was really, really cool. And it's like both Maul and DZ had huge universes, and you didn't all know all of the characters, so it was very helpful.
One thing about those is they started out in comic book format, but then later, as time went by, they started selling you 3-ring binders and then issuing the updates as loose leaf, 3-hole punched, complete character turnarounds on the front and all of their stats with maybe a panel of them in action on the back. So they really step up their game as they went. I've got like 13 3-ring binders it's full of the Marvel Universe encyclopedia entries. And one of the things that they did, which as somebody who's sort of OCD, it really drove me crazy. But let's say, for example, the first issue of their loose leaf binder pages that they would give you, it had characters, just a few characters from every letter of the alphabet. So you'd have a few of the people from A, a few of the B. You might skip C and you'd get a D and a J. And it was like, you'd have to go in and you'd have to put them in alphabetical order if you wanted to. That drove me nuts. But it was also, if you think about it, it was also very immersive and participatory, because you got to not only collect the issues and all that, but you got to put it together. You got to decide where you wanted to put the cover page, because it had a whole bunch of other characters on it. I put that in the final 3-ring binder that I have. It's in binder 13, all the cover pages. If you find those still in the shrink wrap, they're worth something. Not a whole lot, but they're worth something, because everybody, when they got them, they opened them up. So the fact, if you find one in pristine condition in the shrink wrap, you've got a value there.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't have anything from my original collection. Once I moved from New York, in Kentucky now, I gave away my collection to all my friends out there.
Oh, that hurts the heart.
Well, it's like I did have the hardcore stuff I picked up and I collected, but I also got like a ton of stuff. Working in the 90s, I got books from Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, and random smaller publishers back when.
Sure. Valiant.
Like Valiant. I've read like tens of thousands of comics, because I would get boxes and boxes of stuff, and it's like, okay, I'll read them.
That's great. Yeah, in 2014, I was, not by financial circumstance, but by circumstance, I was forced to sell about 80 boxes of my comics. And when I see some of those posted on Twitter or Facebook or all that, it's just like this twinge of just, I resent that I had to sell those, because I also took a terrible bath on those too. So I know now, now that all these movies have come out and all that I probably could have made quite a bit more money on them if I piecemealed them. But I did, keep a good portion of the collection. I was able to keep some of them. So, I've got that. And I also have every appearance of She-Hulk since she debuted in 1980. She's been in about 2,800 or so comic books. I've even got appearances where she was just a cameo, like Daredevil 298. She's on a billboard in the background, and that's it. One panel, she's on a billboard, and I've got that issue. There's one where she's on the cover of Hawkeye. I think it's number 4. It's a miniseries, and it's a funeral scene where he's in a casket and all these heroes are around him. It's just, she's at the bottom of the front cover, just the back of her head, but she's on the cover. So I bought that one.
That's dedication there.
Right. Yeah, that's a true collector. And that's why variant covers just drive me insane, Peter, because Secret Wars 2, number 1, as an example, had 47 variant covers.
Did it? Wow.
Some of them were store exclusives. Like you could only get it at Mile High Comic in Denver or Manhattan Comics in New York. There's a couple of others, but those became super rare immediately. So if you try to go out and find them online, like even the next day, instead of $4.99, they were $60, $75, etc.
Oh yeah.
And what that does to a completist collector like me is it's very defeating, because there's no way I'm going to buy that one comic 47 times just because the cover is different. Now, if the interiors were different, sure I would, but it's just the cover, so I can't justify doing that. Now, if there were 4 or 5 variants, I actually will, and I have been for the latest She-Hulk series, buying the variants. But when they started throwing out 47, 50, even 100 variants, that was disappointing. Now, a lot of folks will say, dude, just don't buy them all. Buy the ones you like, or buy the main cover and you're good. It's like, I get what you're saying. I have collected the storyline that way, but you must not have Asperger's syndrome like me, because I do. And I'm a completist collector, and it drives me nuts that I don't really have the whole thing.
Right. Yeah, it's like I usually get the cover I like, or at least if it's the interior art team, maybe I'll pick that one up,
Right.
But
now, I know here I am. I've got a campaign where I've got a main cover and 2 variants. So I don't think that I'm being hypocritical, though, because like I said, a couple of variants, that's fine. You get people who have different tastes who want either a hardcover as opposed to soft cover, or they've got an artist or 2 that they prefer. So that's why a little bit of variety is okay. But when you start going crazy with it, I don't know. It's a turnoff for me.
Yeah, I mean, like, because everybody wants in on a good thing, and I realize, like, that's why you see sort of convention variants and store variants, and even some sites have special variants, whatever. So all of a sudden, what originally started 3 or 4 different covers turns into a dozen.
Right. And it can do that quickly.
Yeah.
Now there was a push. I don't know how many years ago it was, but it was like the 100 Project. It was called. They did it for Hulk. I think they did it for Captain America and maybe one other. And they had a blank, like, sketch cover, and they had 100 different artists do an original sketch cover. And then I think they sold them at an auction, and they got a ton of money for that. I think it was for a charity. And then what they did was they issued a comic book sized issue called the 100 Project, and it featured all of the covers in it, which I thought was cool. It was a way then to get all of those covers without having to buy all of those individual issues, because again, it was sold at auction. So, good luck getting those. So that approach I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is kind of cool, and definitely if it's charity and whatever, like that's a good thing. So
right, and they got a lot of folks who were familiar to fans of the Hulk, but they also got a lot of folks who even weren't familiar to comic book collectors. Like they had a few people who were fine art portrait artists who did a cover of the Hulk, and they did some people who were magazine artists rather than comic books. So it was kind of neat to see those artists participate.
So did they do a portrait of Lou Ferrigno?
I wonder if anybody actually did that. I have to go back through my 100 Project issue and see if they did. My artist for Siamese 1 and 2 is a fine art portrait painter. I discovered him, however, in a nursing magazine. I don't mean breastfeeding. I just mean, nurses working in a hospital. I was at a hospital in a waiting room. My wife was undergoing surgery, and I was there for like hours and hours waiting for that to get done. And I was just going through the sports magazines they had on the table and whatever. I picked up the nursing magazine. I was thumbing through it, and I came across an ad for one of the nursing programs, like how to keep track of client and patient data and things like that. But the ad was done as if the nurses were superheroes. So it looked like a one-page comic book ad. And I thought that, hey, this artist is pretty good. I wonder if he'd be willing to do a comic book with me. So his name wasn't on it anywhere, but the ad agency was mentioned at the bottom. So I got in touch with the ad agency and said I wanted to talk to the artist, and they were kind of baffled that I would contact them. And I said, I want to hire the guy. They're like, oh, all right, well, we'll get you in touch with him. Now, at the time, he was out hiking the Adirondacks, doing that trail, the Adirondack Trail. Right. So it took him about a month or so to get back to me, but he was excited about it. He's like, yeah, sure, I'll do a full-length comic book. Why not? So we were working on that. He did issues 1 and 2, but then I'm going to say sadly, but it was sort of bittersweet. He got a commission for a portrait, like a very large portrait, like the size of a wall of someone's recently deceased son. So, I mean, he would get like $35,000 to upwards of $70,000, depending on the size of the portrait he was doing. Right. So I didn't blame him one bit for stepping away from Siamese to get that done, because that was his bread and butter. Right. And he and I stayed in touch. And in fact, he's the artist. And the reason I bring him up, he's the artist on the 8-page ashcan that we talked about a few minutes ago called Bog.
Oh,
because
okay, cool.
once he did that portrait, and I think maybe a few others in the interim, he reached back out to me and said, hey, are you still doing comic books? I said, yeah, of course I am. He said, I'd really like to work with you again. What have you got? So, we did that. He really loves Man-Thing and Swamp Thing. So when I showed him this character Bog, he was like all in. He's like, that's going to be fun. So yeah, he's that ashcan is already all completely drawn, and the coloring is almost done as well. So, it's great that he's back on the team, as it were, and he's fun to work with. And then for Siamese 3 and 4, I hired Zilson Costa, who's also a Brazilian artist like Caius. And Zilson, he has been working in comics for a while, and he did, if you remember the old comic, and I say old, it's like even before my time, so you got to know it's old. There was a comic book in the like 40s and 50s, I think, called Nature Boy. Well, right. Nature Boy is in the public domain now. So there was a writer who did, his name is Dan Sen. He did Nature Man. Basically, it's the same character grown up. And he had Zilson Costa do the art for that. So, I saw that and thought, oh, this would be a great artist on the next 2 issues of Siamese. And he and I have a great rapport, just like Caius and I do. And that's one of the great things about a writer who, as a hashtag just a writer, obviously I need to hire artists. So when you find one with whom you've got a great rapport, it's good, because you send them a script. In your head, you've got a vision of what the panel looks like, the blocking, the camera angle, if you will. But right. The artist has their interpretation, because the artist is just as much a storyteller as the writer is, in my opinion. The two of them work hand in hand in the comic book medium. So, these artists, sometimes they come back with a panel or a page that's even better than the one I had envisioned. So that's like, oh, damn, that's awesome. Now, Zilson also worked on one of my previous campaigns that did not get funded, and that was the Healing Wars. It was Janice Hardy's The Healing Wars, book 1, The Shifter. And what he had done on one page in particular, I explained to him that I'd like the main character. It's like a fantasy setting in medieval times. She's going from the butcher, the blacksmith, to the baker, etc., looking for work. And, she keeps getting turned away. So each panel, I said, I want it to look like she's walking from one store to the next, from panel to panel. And what he did with that, in addition to making it look like she's walking across the page from panel to another, is he made each one of the panels a piece of a puzzle. So the 6 panels that I'm referring to here all look like puzzle pieces put together that made up her morning. So nice. I thought that's an awesome idea. It looked great on the page. Everybody who looked at the campaign thought it was awesome. The campaign goal on that one was pretty high, though. And in addition to having to pay for the creative staff, I also had to pay for a license to publish that one, because it was Janice Hardy's award-winning novel trilogy called The Healing Wars. And I reached out to her and asked her if it would be all right to do a comic book. And she agreed, but there was a license fee necessary. Now, the fact that it didn't fund, though, doesn't mean it's dead in the water. It just means that I'm going to need to re-strategize. I'd really still like to see that story told in comic book form. And so would Janice. She and her husband are both comic book fans, so she'd like to see that done too. And then who knows, if it gets picked up by Hollywood and not wrecked by Hollywood, people might get interested in the comic book and her novels too. Now,
Right.
I would say that her story is probably akin to like either The Hunger Games or Divergent. So
Right.
it's got the young female protagonist who goes basically on the hero's journey. And I think it's very well written. Her books are sort of for a young adult audience, but my wife read it first, said, hey, I think you'd really like this. Why don't you give it a try? I just poured right through the books, all 3 books. I loved them. And when I was talking to my friend Steve about it, who's my editor, he said, you know, you really like that series. Do you want to talk to the author? And I was like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, I work with her husband. So he got me in touch with her, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to get that published someday.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, it's what we know is crowdfunding is tricky.
Indeed.
It's definitely, I've seen a lot of books have more of a struggle this past year. Like we're not getting any huge numbers, but you know, there's still plenty of people doing pretty well on both Kickstarter and Indiegogo and now Zoop and of course what's his name? James Eric July.
Oh, Eric July? Yeah.
Yeah, he did pretty fantastic himself. Yeah, he's had different challenges, but but you know, like for the average crowdfunder, getting the word out, you know, it's a lot of work, and you know, it's tough. I've been a part of a couple of campaigns myself this past year, and one funded, one didn't. Got another one coming up maybe soon. It's hard enough to get the word out and as well as try to get a day's work in every day.
Right. Yeah, you're right. It's, you know, it's quite a grind. I know for Siamese, I appeared on 80 different shows. I kept track of all those shows, and that's how I created CG Guide, which is, you know, a guide of all these kinds of shows.
Right.
A lot of folks, though, have sort of let that go to the wayside and haven't told me when their shows change or new shows are created. I'd love for people to get in touch with me so I could keep that updated and let people know when shows are coming on and who's on them. But in addition to that grind, there's 2 schools of thought as to what's going on as far as, you know, why this year is different than most. And I don't know if I subscribe to either one, because I see pros and cons to either side of this debate. Number one, on the side of the positive, when you say, you know, a lot of industry pros are coming into the indie scene, whether or not their Comicsgate is sort of irrelevant to my point, and that is right. That the comic book collectors and people who would potentially back these projects have a finite amount of disposable income. However, when these industry pros come in, it brings a lot of additional fans with them in a lot of cases. So the positive to that, obviously, is if, for example, you know, I'll mention, you know, well, someone like you, someone like Aaron Lepresti, someone who comes into the indie scene and brings their fans with them. Now that means that people who are fans of Palmiotti or Lepresti might also notice Menard, maybe. Right. So that's a positive. On the other hand, like I said, people do have a finite amount of disposable income. So let's say, for example, and I know of one person, Danger Vanessa, she says, I have so many books I allow myself to back on a monthly basis. So if she says, I don't know, I'm just going to pick 4. She says, I'm going to back 4 books every month. Well, if she has the choice between backing, you know, Keown, Roquefort, Palmiotti, and Lopresti, or does Menard get in that slot somewhere? I mean,
Right.
I think she's going to go with the major well-known pros. So that would be potentially the downside to so many great industry pros coming in. And so I don't know exactly where I stand on that. There's so much to be said for either side on that debate, but I'd like to try to keep things positive and just hope that appearing on shows like yours, when I was on John Malin's show last Friday, and things like that, that they're hopefully helpful in getting more eyes on the projects.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. Like I've been having creators on here since I've been streaming, and promoting other people's books, and since campaign started and doing all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I tend to think there's enough fans. It's just some people need, like, they say in advertising, 3 is a key number. Like, be able to hit over the head 3 times, then you'll find go look at the product. It's like I'm sure, like, most people just speed through the internet and see posts and don't really take in what's happening and what's there, and but these streams are good, like, because people stop and watch and go check out the links as they're watching or afterwards, and actually go look at the books. So
I agree. There are also some great people in the community, whether they're creators or not, who say, hey, let's have a creators lift. And they say, post your links below, which in a lot of cases, I think is, pretty cool of them to do that. But then sometimes you'll pull it up and you'll see that there's 45 links attached to that one request for everybody's links. So you're like, well, I love that they asked for it, and I'm definitely going to put mine on there. But in my number 46 or my number 12, are people going to scroll that far down? So I think these streams are important. I also think that, a lot of times they say that being a host of these streams is important as well. And that's why I have a weekly show on Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. And I have creators come on my show and show their products. I also, play my trailer, hoping to get a couple more eyes on that if I can. I also have every day I've got a short form video on a wide variety of topics called the 60-second subject.
right.
But nobody tease me. I know it's never 60 seconds. I know. I just called it that for alliteration purposes. But hey, General Piggy, glad to have you here too.
Welcome.
So yeah, I've got a lot of video content, and this is an exclusive here. I'll talk about it. My show format is changing. I'm going to go to having myself and 3 regular co-hosts. The 4 of us are going to have like a roundtable discussion on a current topic. And then what we'll do for that first, let's call it 40 to 45 minutes of the show, we'll talk about that topic with our guest. So, let's say, for example, Brian Kriskow is on the show, and he's got Six Gun Gorilla, an omnibus coming out on Zoop very soon. So he's going to be the first one on this new format as our guest. So he'll be, I'll call it, sitting at the table with us, right, discussing the current topics. And then toward the end, we'll go over his campaign. And I'll ask him just to, hit the highlights. Like what, tell us about your artist. Tell us about the story, of course, and a couple of the tiers that you'd like to point out that are either the best value or the ones that you think people would be most excited about. So that format starts in early November.
Okay, pretty soon.
Yep, pretty soon. I've got all of October already booked up with co-hosts and guests. So yeah, I'm looking for my note cards right now. Here we are. Okay, so in October, let's see. Lola Meets is my co-host on the 12th with Dean Gibson, the creator of Zarday. On the 19th, Smiling Bandito is my co-host, and Mark Polton with his book Loose Threads will be on the show. And on the 26th, the last Wednesday of the month, Frequency Girl, Nefarious's wife, will be on the show. And
Yeah.
Ian Miller and Lauren Skinkis of Legends of Log from Alterna Comics will be on the show, and
Right.
David Horowitz of Cornerstone Creative Studios with American Eagle #1 will be on the show. So one of the things that you can tell by that is the fact that I don't limit my guests to only people who have declared CG. Not at all. Basically, if
Right.
you are making great comics and you don't mind coming on a show from somebody who is CG, you're neutral on that, then you're more than welcome to come on my show. I had a look at David Horowitz's American Eagle, and wow, that looks like a great comic. So I'll be happy to tout that on the 26th with Frequency Girl. So
Cool.
that's the kind of thing we do. I'll be reaching out to people after the show's format changes to get them on to tout their book. But the beginning of it will be about current topics, something that we can, all chew the fat about.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds good. It's, I do that on my channel, but my internet isn't strong enough. once I have like more than 3 people, my thing starts dragging.
I see. Okay. My wife and I both work from home, so we had to make certain that our internet was robust because we've constantly got meetings going on. She's an exec at an auto company. I'm a fraud examiner, internal auditor, and anti-money laundering specialist. So I'm constantly in meetings as well. And if we're both in meetings, that can really drain on an internet if it's not a significant signal.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm sure it will do you very well.
I hope so. It'll be fun. I've been doing my current format for 43 episodes now. I know that pales in comparison to your 277, but before my show went to a solo show with guest hosts, K Manifesto and I had done a show together for about 1.5 years. So he needed to step away for a while. We didn't fall out or anything, but he needed to step away, and I went out on my own and had to figure it out because that show that he and I did, the K Manifesto show with Dojo Kun Comics, he's a video production expert for the government in the state of Georgia. So his video production and the production of the show was significant, and he was a perfectionist when it came to that, and I thought it looked really good. Mine, I've got a face for radio. I was a disc jockey for a few years, but I don't worry about the lighting. You can see I've got a big quilt behind me here. So that fact that the quilt's behind me would have driven him nuts. He'd have been like, no, you can't sit there. But it's more about the person on the book than the background.
Right. And you could always do what is that? Green screen. You could do green screen.
Yeah, you could do that. Yep.
I see a lot more creators doing that. That's cool. It's like I do have more than 277 videos on my channel. It's like I started this series because it's like every video I was doing was some sort of different theme. So I was like, let me pull everything together and do it as a series. So there's actually just now over 800 videos on my channel.
Wow, that's great.
And I've had in the past streams where I've had crowds of people back when my internet was better. And I used to do a thing called Studio Synergy, which I'll probably get back to at one point. And it invited a bunch of artists and writers and went with a theme every episode. Okay. So it was like always a different crowd, always a different theme. And, we could spin off into different topics, but it was always a fun time.
Yeah, the fact that you weren't too rigid with the topics is helpful. And the group of us that'll be doing that beginning in November will have to keep that in mind. You don't want to go off the rails too far, but it's okay to stray a little bit.
Yeah. Especially if you're trying to find answers or discover solutions,
Right. Yeah, today at noon, I went on Earth's Best Entertainment, his extravaganza show, and a couple of times we went off the rails quite a ways. I had to sort of reel us back in, like, hey, let's get back on topic here. I felt like I was stepping on his toes a little bit because it was his show after all, but he's kind of new to streaming, so I wanted to, get us back on topic and keep his audience there if we could.
Right. So, what, let's keep it to crowdfunding now. Like, what campaigns have you seen that you think they're doing it right, like, or you're excited about?
Well, I'll start off with Michael Bancroft's The Lucent Painted
Right.
Death, which is his second book. One of the reasons he's doing it right, well, if you were to look at his latest Twitter thread all about being a campaign and comic creator, he's got like 7 different points that he follows religiously, and he put it out there for all of us too. And I thought that they were great suggestions. I've heard them all before, but it was neat that he put them in like one single thread. He's doing it right because he built an audience. Obviously, he did a great job on his first book. He had Melanie, help with fulfillment. Actually, she probably did all of the fulfillment for him on the first book. It fulfilled on time. So, maybe it was a little bit behind, but I don't think it was because of him. I think it was because of printing issues with Mixum. Mixum, Australia. Yeah, that caused some problems. I do remember there's a bit of a delay because he had to go redo some pages. Joe Fulton, his editor, suggested that he fix some art. That was the beginning of the lore about the ginger root hand. But so his campaign's looking good. Jake Adams with his Cobalt, his second issue of Cobalt, Death Stalks Us. Looks like that's going to be amazing. Jake will be on the show with me starting in November. Let's see, who else? Well, recently I got Isom from Eric July. You were just talking about that. And one of the things that we were hoping for, we mentioned this on the show earlier today, we were hoping that book would knock our socks off. And the reason we were hoping for that is he's obviously bringing a lot of folks to the table who weren't collecting comic books at all recently. Either they fell away from the hobby or they never were collectors, and they were backing it because it was Eric July and because they were already fans of his. We were hoping that the normies and newbies would say, hey, comics look great again. Who else in his circle of friends in the indie industry could I have a look at? And I was hoping it would sort of trickle down to folks like me, because obviously Eric, is in contact with folks like Malin and Van Sciver and Lepresti, things like that. And I was hoping that through that, people would see those books, get excited, and then start looking around either in Indiegogo and Kickstarter or even CG Now that the Bancrofts put up, and start looking at other creators in this realm. I've heard that the book it's good. It's not knock your socks off good, but hopefully it's good enough that people will do exactly that and start looking around the indie industry.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe it's a good thing if it's mediocre.
I suppose, yeah. That could be, yeah. The art looks fantastic. I haven't had a chance yet to read it, but I'm looking forward to it. And then just the other night, I had Mandy Summers and Dale Keown on my show, and we were talking about Mandy's projects. Gem Shock, which Dale had provided 2 different covers for, both the one of just Gem Shock jumping toward the reader, and then the one with the crossover with Gem Shock and Pitt. But she's also working with Peter Gilmore on Jack the Ripper Vampire Hunter Volume 2. And Volume 1, I have right over here. I think it was, I'm going to say this. A lot of people joke or deride Mandy for her simpanzee because people simp over her attractiveness or whatever. Listen, that may be true, but she's also a great comic book writer. I read this book and I was enthralled. I can't wait for the second issue to come out or crowdfund. So is she attractive? Yes. Okay, sure. I can see that. But she's also a great creator in this realm in the industry. And so don't just look at these folks that are buying her book as simps, because there's more to it than that.
Right. Yeah. And, I've heard that about her, about Irene, who's also another fantastic creator and artist.
Oh
And
my gosh, Irene's book. She put so much work into that.
yeah,
In addition to being a great artist, an industry pro, because
yep,
she worked for Marvel,
yep,
she has amazing world building in that book. She wrote a language. She created a language for that book. She's got a map that you can get. Hopefully, when it gets to a certain stretch goal, it'll be a map printed on canvas. So, yeah, her book, Fiendish 2, also looks amazing, and I can't wait for that one.
yeah. I'm excited with Joe Sonntag with his book Reap It Destroyer.
Yes.
You know, he's got some talent behind him, and he's got some names people might recognize working on the book.
He's got an all-star cast of creators, you bet.
Yeah,
With Matt Bat Banning as one of his inkers.
yeah,
I think he said Kyle's doing the colors. I mean, it's an amazing group that he brought together for that.
yeah. And,
He's got a cover by Keown also.
yeah.
I was saying to Dale, I said, check your DMs, man. I'd like to get a cover before Malin does too.
Yep, yep. Well, I don't know if you ever saw it, but I did ink the Dale cover that Joe has. He said he's going to use it as some merchandise, either a print or a card or something or another.
Excellent. You inked that piece? That's awesome.
Well, yeah. I inked his pencils, and he's using the Jochoto coloring. That's like going to be one of the main covers. But the piece I inked he'll make into a print or a trading card or something or another.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like I saw that art, and I always like Dale's stuff, and I really like the piece, and I was like, I just want to try something. I want to try something different, like something I don't normally do. And I gave it a shot, and I liked it, and
What
Joe
did you do that was different?
I just went, like rather than standard inking, I went a little risky with the lines, and it's more cross hatching and stuff going on, and
So it's not real crisp. It's more of I don't know.
right,
It gives it more of a natural feel to it, right?
yeah, and like
Okay.
it's almost not even line work behind the character. It's like pencil rubbings. I gave that more of a sort of fabric kind of look to it.
Sometimes when it's done like that, it's not super fine lines, but rather I call it a little dirty. I think that gives it a lot of extra character.
Yeah. So I had a lot of fun with it, and so he liked it and said he's going to use it for something, and he said eventually Dale got a chance to see it, and he liked it. So.
Oh, very cool. Glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's all I need to hear. But yeah, I mean, there's so many campaigns, and it's like, there's no real downtime. There's always something going on, it seems, and everybody, plugging their books and shouting. It's like you got to shout louder than the other people sometimes.
Right. What's cool about the indie industry and collecting, I call it collecting. I'm backing creators in their creation of their projects. So I'm not really buying the comic from them. I'm instead backing their project. But these books that I'm getting as a result, it has completely taken the place of my mainstream comic book purchases, with the exception of She-Hulk. So I still buy She-Hulk, but other than that, I don't buy any mainstream comics. I just get comics that I fund, that I'm backing on Indiegogo, Kickstarter, Zoop, etc. Mostly Indiegogo, but I'll check out people on other platforms as well.
Right. Have you you got me curious. Have you watched the She-Hulk show?
I do. Yep. In fact, I bought Disney Plus specifically to watch the show because I'm such a huge fan. Um, I have to say that I was disappointed in the first 7 episodes, but to try and keep the conversation positive, I think episode 8 fired on all cylinders, and I think they finally got it right. I really liked that last episode.
I thought, it's not 100% Daredevil,
Right.
but it was cute. It was cute.
Yeah. If you go into it understanding that they're trying to make it a 30-minute legal comedy rather than a drama, then you maybe can be a little bit forgiving. But unfortunately, they're not really hitting on all cylinders with the comedy aspect of it either. In fact, a lot of it's coming off as kind of cringe. But in this last episode, it was funny. The lines were well delivered, not only by Charlie Cox playing Daredevil, who I think has got great timing, but Tatiana did a little bit better this time too. I think maybe the director on this episode cared more about canon, cared more about the characters, and that may have shown in the fact that I liked this episode quite a bit more than the other 7.
Yeah, I don't see the purpose to this show though. That's my take on it. Like it's entertaining at times, but I don't see the direction of the story, where it's going. I'm expecting something from it. I don't know. Maybe too much.
I think you are expecting too much, because after all, the people that Marvel is hiring nowadays, both for their comics and for their television shows, are people who have absolutely no concern whatsoever for canon. They don't care that the character's been around for 40 years, 80 years, whatever. They want to tell their agenda, or they do self-insertions all the time. They want you to learn a lesson from them. Like, could you just try and entertain me? Instead of trying to teach me something. I'm watching a TV. If I want to learn lessons, I have parents and clergy for that. Could you just, put a show together?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I thought the Hawkeye was fun. Hawkeye show was fun.
Yeah, that wasn't bad.
Night was well done.
I don't remember the actress's name, but the character who played Yelena, the Black Widow's sister.
Right.
She did a great job. I love her comedic timing, where she she says this really threatening, phrase that sounds like, "I'm going to kill you and all of your family," and then the person looks petrified. She goes, "I'm just kidding. Here, have some macaroni and cheese."
Right.
Her delivery on those things were fantastic. I think she does a great job. I just recently watched Black Widow. I'm trying to watch all of the Marvel stuff in order. And she touches on that a little bit in the Black Widow movie, but I thought she did even better in the Hawkeye series.
Yeah, I think she's supposed to be in the what are they doing?
Thunderbolts?
Thunderbolts, yeah. I was going to say
I have heard that. Yep, I've heard that it's going to be Ghost, whatever that White Widow, I guess she is. They've got, let's see, who else?
The U.S. agent.
Oh yeah, right.
The failed Captain America.
Yeah, exactly. It's from West Coast Avengers. But I guess they're going to have potentially the Red Hulk in that one. So that could be pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know if they have more in store for. It seems like it with Hulk, regular Hulk, Bruce Banner.
Yes.
Like they might take him off on his own story coming up or something.
Well, yeah, in She-Hulk, they set that up because the last time they spoke on the phone, he was actually in space, traveling away from Earth. So whatever, I don't know if they're setting up for another crack at Planet Hulk, because the first one in Thor Ragnarok was, I don't know, it's kind of lame. Actually, the whole movie Thor Ragnarok was kind of lame. They're trying so hard to be funny, and once in a while that's okay, but they tried to make the whole thing a comedy, and it just came off as half-assed. I thought that his, banter with Surtur at the beginning where he's in the chains over the molten lava. That was silly. Yeah. And I usually like Jeff Goldblum a lot, but his turn as the Grandmaster it missed the mark for me. They made him like a buffoon. They made him like scatterbrained, not on top of it. It's like he's an elder of the universe. Why are they coming across as he's such a dope? And at the end, he wants to negotiate with the people of that planet. It's like, no, he's an elder of the universe. He could wipe them out like with a thought. So again, not caring about canon, the people who are writing these things, they just don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess it might have something to do with, what is it? The Secret Invasion or whatever.
Yep, that's coming up. They've got the secret or the invasion and maybe Secret Wars. I just don't know what they're going to do with Secret Wars. I don't think they're going to do Beyonder and the Battle Planet. I think they're going to have to change that. And
they're doing Kang as well.
Yeah, you're right.
So they got a lot of going on. I mean, regardless of the level of quality of it all, like, they know they have a built-in audience. They got no worries.
That's true. And, part of me, as I do all of this, all of these critiques and criticisms, I also sometimes sit back and realize this is a great time to be a superhero fan because finally we're seeing all of our heroes brought to life on the big screen. So there's a part of me that says, just appreciate it. Just, enjoy the fact that they're doing that. A couple of movies that were panned almost across the board were like, Green Lantern. A lot of people did not like that.
Right.
I didn't like how they handled Hector Hammond and Parallax, but honestly, overall, I kind of enjoyed the movie. If you just go there thinking, I'm going to just be entertained for a while, as opposed to, I'm going to pick this apart because I think I could have done it better if I had the money,
There were parts of it that were good. I guess the stuff in the space was better, but it just seemed to me it was like, 1 minute we're focusing on Green Lantern, then we're focusing on the villain, then back to Green Lantern, then back to the villain, then back. It just like story construction wise, it took me out of it. Like,
seemed kind of disjointed to you.
Yeah, it's like,
okay.
It's like we don't have a clue how to tell this story. Let's just cut it up and put it together after. Like,
right.
It just didn't make sense.
I think another way that, they sort of missed the mark was they didn't make Hal Jordan very endearing. At the beginning of the movie, he was a dick. And it was like, I don't care if he becomes a super. I know he's gonna, but I don't even like the guy. So, that was part of the problem. Some characters, like Doctor Strange, who start out to be an arrogant dick, we know that he's got a redemption arc. We know that he, comes to his senses after he, meets the Ancient One. But Hal Jordan, he stayed pretty arrogant throughout most of the movie. So it was like, oh man, I don't identify with him. I don't like him much.
Yeah,
but like you said, the scenes
was the greatest example of how good it could work. Like, like he was an asshole, but like he became a real person afterwards.
Right. Now, something I did like about Green Lantern, you kind of alluded to it, and that was the scenes in space where he was on, I think it's pronounced Oa, and he was learning from Sinestro and Kilowog and how do you say Tatar, the bird-like dude.
Right.
So, when he was learning, getting trained by them, I thought that was pretty cool. And the special effects there were neat.
Yeah. But did you hear the recent news that Wolverine's coming back?
I did, yes. I don't know if that will now be the introduction of, the X-Men in the MCU, because I have heard that that's sort of how they're going to do that. They are introducing mutants more, like, for example, Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan is a mutant, and so is Namor. So we know that Namor is going to be in Black Panther, and Kamala Khan obviously had her own TV show. So, the mutants are there. Oh, and Xavier was in the Multiverse of Madness.
Right.
So we have seen some mutants. I think it's fun that Hugh Jackman's coming back. I don't know if it's just for Deadpool or if it's going to be for good, coming back as an X-Men.
I think it's probably just Deadpool.
Yeah, probably. But, I could see how he might want to step away. After all, he's Broadway trained and he doesn't want to, be stereotyped as Wolverine. But at the same time, if you look back at Leonard Nimoy, who wrote a whole book called I Am Not Spock because he didn't want to be pigeonholed. And then he realized how big a mistake that was. He said, and then he wrote a book called I Am Spock. Like, no, don't kick me out. I'm back.
Yeah, I think part of the reasoning was like, he's getting older and it's a lot of work to be Wolverine.
That's true. It is an awful lot to keep that physique up. Yep.
And he did take it seriously. It's not like he just showed up and like.
That's true.
Whatever he looked like.
But he also showed his acting chops in a few other movies. I know that he showed his Broadway singing and dancing ability in The Greatest Show on Earth that he was a part of. So it's not as if he's just being stereotyped. I just think he should be careful about stepping away from the character. I mean, honestly, if given the chance, they wanted me to be in the MCU as one of those characters, I would just go all in. I'd be like, however many times you want this character to appear, I'm there.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think probably the main reason he's coming back is because of Ryan. Like him and
they're very
Ryan,
good friends. Yep.
Really good friends and doing this sort of play fight publicly, like between Wolverine and Deadpool. Like it's pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's good advertising. It's like, get our characters to come to life and fight amongst each other.
That's right. Yeah, I'm game. Hollywood. My number is 248.
So we've been going a little over an hour. Is there anything about the campaign that we haven't mentioned you want to go over?
I did mention everything I wanted to, other than, just remember, folks, there's only 6 days left. We're 74% funded. I'd really like to get this into your hands and to keep going with the connected superhero universe of Dojo-kun Comics. Hey, Amanda, good to see you. And I'd like the chance to keep going on these. I've had a couple of campaigns that didn't fund. I was, excited about Siamese last year that it funded and fulfilled. So I'm capable of doing it. I've been publishing for since 2014 now, so you can back with confidence in the project. And we've got a great creative staff on the project. And I think you'll like it if you get it in your hands. I think you really will.
Yeah, it's a solid looking book. It's a solid campaign page. People should go and check it out. And if all you do is share it out, retweet it, reshare it, that will definitely help as well.
Oh, absolutely. I would appreciate even just that. That would be a big help.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on. This has been fun.
I appreciate it. Yeah, the conversation got a little lively there. I had a good time talking to you.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Give it a like if you haven't already. Subscribe to my channel. I think I got like 16 new subscribers in the last month. So thank you very much. Channel's growing. And I'll be away for the weekend, but I'll be back next week. And I got a whole bunch of new guests showing up, and we'll see you then. So
excellent.
Yeah, have a great night, and I'll see you soon. And I always forget to double click. Okay.